Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here today for today's conversation. It's going to be deep and thought-provoking. We're going to dive into mental health, spirituality, and how these two worlds connect, especially when it comes to the complex and most misunderstood topics like schizophrenia and narcissism. Today, I'm joined with two highly knowledgeable and influential voices in this area, Harald Kautz, who is a German scientist, author and researcher who bridges hard science and deep spirituality. He explores topics like Morgellons disease, smart dust, black goo, AI, transhumanism, and their spiritual implications. He's the co-author of Dangerous Imagination, Silent Assimilation, and is a sought-after speaker in alternative science and spiritual circles. We're also joined with Harald Marzinsky, who is a retired registered psychotherapist who has his own practice now. He has more than 35 years of experience working with psychotic and criminally insane patients in some of the most secure psychiatric institutions and prisons in the US. He's received multiple awards, including Arizona's Meritorious Service Award and the Pima's College Apple Award for the teaching of abnormal psychology, and co-authored An Amazing Journey into the Psychotic Mind, Breaking the Spell of the Ivory Tower. We come together today to explore the important topics of mental health, especially schizophrenia and narcissism. My work focuses on helping people heal and recover from narcissistic abuse, addressing both the mental health and spiritual aspects of these challenges. Welcome, Jerry and Harald, to the show. Welcome.
Good to be here. Yeah. Just looking into your background, Jerry, maybe we should expand a little bit into borderline and psychopathy and sociopathy. Because
well, I've met my share of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of them didn't want any help.
Yeah, on the streets of Germany, you just meet the bankers and the politicians that would classify. So they're not hardcore, but I'm curious on how the other share of those displays.
Well, the antisocial, I worked for 18 years in the psychology department of a large state prison. So they were full of those kind of people. And the narcissists, I don't find a lot of narcissists coming for help. They think they're okay, they're fine. Everybody else is screwed up.
I had that phenomenon to the point where we understood the bioenergetics of it. And then you can find a way to address them not as the villain, but as the victim. And if you take that turn, it's quite easy to get them. Because maybe before we straight dive into it, I've got a little bit unusual access to the topic. So maybe I should give you a short intro of the two perspectives I got on clinical conditions. One is, I used to work as a scientist. I did conferences mainly on the topics mentioned, like transhumanism, and people kept asking me for private consultations after the show. And I started just to stay for a day or two longer, not exactly knowing what people want from me. So we just started to talk, normal conversation, and they had problems, and I remembered, okay, I had the same problem during my lifetime. How did I solve it? Nobody helped me, of course. How did I solve it? I did it that way. And then I gave advice of how I handled it, and people could handle their problems accordingly. And that was kind of it wasn't even planned that way, but it was a success model to not apply any profession like psychologists or psychiatrists on problems, but just to take it from a homemade experience, giving advice from human to human, how you can handle your own problems if nobody is there to help. And it somehow developed into a success model. I didn't do any advertisement on that one. It was just mouth-to-mouth propaganda. And after half a year, I had 7 working days a week with 8 clients a day online. And at a certain point, I was so overworked that in a public interview, someone wanted to mention that I give those one-on-one sessions. And I said, oh, for heaven's sake, please don't. I hardly can manage the ones who are coming at the moment. Don't advertise my services, please. If anything, I should educate healing professionals in that specific approach of accompanied self-healing. And a week later, I had, from that one online thing, I had like 80 applications to join my courses, although I hadn't even planned any. And this is kind of when we started to expand to group work, applying methods like family constellation work and past life regression into the problem solving. Because we had a big group and we had a lot of experienced practitioners from all sorts of directions. We could combine the most fruitful approaches to mental health or to spiritual health. And at the moment, we have a Swiss association. We have like 10 different schools all over Europe, teach like 400 people who already have a profession in dealing with psychosomatics in that approach of self-healing. This is kind of the professional part, how I, of course, had to deal with narcissism and other conditions that you just meet on the street. But actually the more fruitful approach was me being in a codependent relationship with a female narcissist. As the people pleaser. And I was sitting in that relationship for like 6 years. It was in a way very fruitful. She was an educated shaman and helped me to encounter the black magic aspect of transhumanism without getting killed, like as my spiritual bodyguard. So we had kind of a good time together. But at the end of the relationship, like those relationships develop, it ended up to be a mess. And I realized by just checking the literature about narcissism that we just followed a script that starts, the usual circle. We're starting with love bombing, and then suddenly the intimacy is kept away. You get future faking and gaslighting and all the aspects of narcissism. I was completely subject to it. And I realized that we've got something to heal, and I would have expected her to come with me in the healing project of our own relationship, but she completely refused and we split. And then we had the aftermath of that relationship where I wondered, why the heck is she still living in my house while I left? Why do I still finance her living, although we are not a couple anymore? Why does she come with every single bill to me to pay it and I still obey? How come? That was kind of the aftermath after I consciously thought the relationship is dissolved. I could meet the deeper layers of subconscious codependencies that keep up the power grid, the power grab from the narcissist to the people pleaser. And so I had to do my own inner work to get out of that trap. And I ended up in some form of self-organized community with a lot of musicians and other nice people. And I realized how the narcissistic concept works, and I chucked out all the narcissists to make the experience that if you have 5 people pleaser in one room, one of them is switching, is becoming a narcissist and controlling the other 4. And if you have 5 narcissists, because we had like a division in the village, all the narcissists were on one side and the people pleasers on the other one. And among the narcissists, one of them, at least one of them, had to switch into the people pleasing position. Because a narcissist needs someone to rule. So this stupid idea that you find in literature that it's not curable is nonsense. You can switch out of the narcissist into the people pleaser and the other way around. Some people live both at the same time. They're a narcissist on job, bossing around their employees, and then they come home and stand under their wife, being pushed around by her. And you can take both roles and you can switch within seconds. This is kind of one realization, that we have one phenomenon that comes in like we call it a Janos head archetype. And the second observation is that this thing behaves archetypal. We had scenes where we called in the narcissists to talk to them about their misdeeds. There were 2 of them invited into this community setting because I owned all the places we were using, and if shit happened, I was the one to clear it. So one afternoon, we invited the 2 narcissists, my ex-girlfriend and another guy that used to live with us. And we called them out on kind of the same misdeed. And it was like a déjà vu with the 2 of them. They used exactly the same wording with exactly the same gestures and micro expressions. Stood up, said something, left the room with the same gestures, slammed the door in the same manner, like the cat in Matrix, where I realized there is not, if you have an active episode of a narcissist, it's not a human acting, it's the archetype acting. It's one being that we are dealing. And this is kind of where I realized that I cannot solve the problem within me if I do not address both the people pleaser and the narcissist at the same time. It's like a coin. You can get rid of a coin, but please try to get rid of one side of a coin. It's impossible. And like that, I could solve my issues. And while solving them, kind of my clients came in. Of course, you always attract the same people with problems that are similar to your own. This is kind of a magic rule in the healing realm. So I had a lot of people pleaser coming to ask for help. And one of them said, mostly I suffered at work because my boss was a stupid fucking asshole narcissist. And he had his kraken arms in all his employees. And first I took it as a metaphor. It's a metaphor because he expressed it like one, but coming out of that relationship with a shaman lady, I had trained my observational capacities with a third eye. And I realized, hell, I've got a kraken arm of my ex-girlfriend in my stomach.
Sorry to interject. Can you explain what these spirits are? I've heard you mention this before. Is the kraken one like the octopus looking?
It's like people. If you want to visualize, like the captain of Pirate of the Caribbean. In mythology, it's Cthulhu. It's one of the 3 types of Archons we have in our bio. So we've got snakes, we've got the kraken type, the Cthulhu, and Yabulon, the spider. And they are kind of the zoo, the biosphere that is organizing the collective subconsciousness. It's an aspect of duality. If you live on a planetary system that has duality, then you have this split from conscious to subconscious parts of the collective consciousness, and the subconscious part is always organized by the dark side that wants to bring things to the light again.
So it's a program of Earth, like a built-in program, would you say, or a hijacking? Has this come about, do you think?
It's a mix. It's not coming from the original planetary consciousness. It's coming from the duality planetary consciousness, which we know as Satan with his biosphere known as the Archons. It's like two planetary spirits fighting for control over the civilization, and sometimes even over the animal kingdoms, but mostly over the civilization. So this is what we experience as duality, having the choice of following the loving collective of Mother Earth with compassion and unity consciousness, or going into endless fights with the evil choice. That evil in the sense of allowing yourself to restage your trauma. This is not evil in the absolute sense. It is also a program of nature that is designed to bring healing by restaging traumatic events. And if you have someone that is mad enough to restage all his trauma, other people are suffering. This is what we started to call evil. Yeah, and that
what I've seen with that is that there's a trauma, and that trauma causes a reaction. There's two things that go on. There's a horrible feeling with the trauma that stays and torments the person forever. Okay? And then there's a decision that's made during that trauma as to the person's relationship to that trauma. Okay, what part did they play? Who are they in the view of it? And that bad feeling stays there for a long time until the ego shows up and goes, "Hey, this is interfering with your functioning. We need to do something about it." And it takes it and throws it into subconscious mind, and it locks it down. Right. So it's not dead. It's still alive. Right. But it's not consciously available anymore. But what it does serve as a landmine. Okay. So if anybody comes around in that person's psychological sphere that was similar to the person that traumatized them, that thing goes off. Yep. It will blow, and it'll say either attack that person or run from that person or avoid that person. So that's like the person that you hate. You know, no matter where you go, here's this person that you hate just shows up. They don't even have to open their mouth. You know, you just don't like them from the time they walk in the room. They give you the willies, and here's this thing saying in your ego, it's them. You can see them. You don't like them. They're right in front of you. Get rid of them. That's not what's going on. It's the damage that we call a negative identity that's stored in the subconscious mind that you're not aware of. What you're aware of is when a person like that comes around, that thing triggers, right? It gets you all upset. Yeah. The other way that shows itself is like if you get into a jam a bunch of times and you swear to yourself, I'm never going to get into that jam again. And 6 months later, you're right back there. You go, how did I get back here? Okay, it's that thing. Now there's a way to get rid of that thing. And I've been searching, 8 years of higher education, psychology, counseling, a PhD program in psychology. Nothing worked. Nothing they were teaching in the universities worked. I mean, it was just this talk therapy. What I'm describing here is the basics for a energetic psychotherapy that came out, invented in Australia, that works better than anything I've ever seen in my entire career. It goes in there, it finds this negative identity, it defines it, and then there's a way to drain it. But there's a spiritual component with this, unlike regular psychotherapy, where it's bone dry spiritually. So this system, invented by a ship captain, John Mace, had nothing to do with psychology or psychiatry. He wouldn't have come up with this system had he not had he gone through all the garbage that I had to go through, and you had to wade through it to find out what the truth is. Right? So it actually works better than on psychological problems, and it cures them. It's not like psychiatry that just dumps drugs on your brain and treats symptoms. It actually gets rid of the psychological cause, and then it's gone.
Maybe we can compare the two systems. What if I basically try to get the basic principle of our approach? There is a certain internal movement pattern you need to follow to come into a state of heart-based decision making. You need to understand your problem.
If it's buried in your subconscious and you're not aware of it, how are you going to understand it?
Oh, you have people to help you to understand your history.
How do they do that?
It depends. If I have a one-on-one session with someone, I just listen to the problem. I gather the data I need to understand what actually the problem is. Then I try to explain the bioenergetics of what's happening in a way that the people can understand the beauty of their suffering. We always, like for example, the narcissist and the people pleaser, they go into this loop because...
Wait, how many people think their suffering is beautiful? I don't think I've ever met one. How do you make that transformation to somebody who's suffering? And what I get in my practice is a constant string of women who have been brutalized by narcissists. I mean, they have been brutalized. They have been seriously damaged by those narcissists to the point where it affects all their relationships. And that damage is gone. It's in the subconscious. If you don't get it out, they're going to keep reacting over and over again and keep attracting narcissists.
No. With a people pleaser, the thing I would say is, let's go one step back for a broader understanding. The primary cause in my experience is when children need to grow up too early. And this can have different initiating points.
Is this your cause for narcissism? What would you say the cause of it is?
It is when the bioenergetic process of initiation is triggered in a child age where there is no chance of getting an adult after the initiation. Initiation by definition.
What does that mean?
Initiation is when you imagine a child or remember you being a child, you have that playful universe that sits in a bubble between your head and your heart chakra. It's like a simulation bubble. You sit there and you play with your toys and you have your matchbox car and makes boom, 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 and everything is real. From the inner perspective, the child is living a simulation of the adult world. And when you turn 13 in a healthy, original, natural environment, your parents will chuck you out to the forests or to the desert, and you will have to sleep one night with the lions or the coyotes or the wolves. And if the fear is completely eating you from inside out, you will smell bad and the animals will kill you. And if you manage to transform your fear into some creative power, then this child kind of merges with the vital forces, with will, anger, creativity, and forms bioenergetically what I would call the spiritual ego.
Well, what is the cause of the narcissism? What is its root?
Yeah,
I haven't seen too many people in the United States here put their kids outside to sleep overnight with the coyotes.
No,
Don't be afraid.
No, this is not what's happening anymore.
What would you say the cause of narcissism is?
We found different ones that reappear very often. One is, for example, if the child is not a child of love and the mother thinks during pregnancy, I wish this baby would die. This is already enough for the fetus, for the soul that is coming to say, when I'm born, I'm not safe. I have to take care of myself. My mom is not loving me. My own mom wishes my death. I need to take care of myself. This is kind of the first opportunity where you have this attempt of initiation inside the spirit. It fails. And then something from the collective comes in as a saving program to take over the emptied shell after you have a complete dissociation. We call it soul loss. You have a complete soul loss. And then the empty space is filled with an archetype. And the archetype has, this is now we come to the beauty of it, has numerous functions. Because you have only one of them, it needs to be very, very adoptable. So it is first looking in every conflict situation. Did I win? Did I lose? If I won, I need to decide what's going to happen. I have to carry responsibility. If I lose, I have to follow to survive. And this is what is deciding whether you get the narcissist or the people pleaser. But it's one head. It's Janu's head. It has two faces and it shifts back and forth and it keeps that ability. You can develop habits of being more the loser or more the winner, but also depending on your environment. So that one has a couple of functions. If you have to decide what
So are you saying that the narcissist, if they get into an environment that's overwhelmingly stronger than he is, will convert into a people pleaser?
Exactly. This is what we observe. What I observed with myself, when I had very weak partners, I was living the narcissist. When I had a strong partner, I was the people pleaser. No problem to switch.
Okay, and then what do you do about that? How do you treat the narcissist? So what I have seen is, you know, most of my study and time has been spent with schizophrenics, and I've seen that a lot of the traits of schizophrenics are very similar to those of narcissists to a different degree. So how do you treat a narcissist? What do you?
The first thing. The first thing is to let him understand that he was a victim as a child. Giving him the window and the opportunity to identify on the soft end of reality, not on the hard one. I acknowledge your suffering in your childhood. What you experienced, you did not deserve that. It was not beautiful. You had to grow up way too early. And that was a hard job. This is kind of the first thing to explain. And the other thing to explain is that being in that position, he ingested that archetype that helped him to grow up on a different path, not on the path of playing and initiating at age 13 by some weird ritual like in natural societies.
So you're saying they adopt a survival archetype.
Yeah, they ingested an archetype. It comes in.
Okay, and you're talking about an evil spirit?
No, it's a useful program that is creating a substitute for a healthy childhood. It is manipulating the people pleaser and the narcissist into relationships that start with love bombing to strengthen them, and then with trauma bonding to restage circumstances that are as toxic as those childhoods were. And then you have a program that is making the relationship toxic enough to break apart. And in the breaking up, both sides, the people pleaser and the narcissist, have the opportunity, have a very short time window to initiate in that different way and to get adult. What is destroyed in the people pleaser? It's not his spirit. It's the personalities he has created during his toxic childhood to cope with being mistreated. It is not a spirit that gets destroyed. Everything the narcissist destroys is in the way for the people pleaser to take back in the soul loss he suffered at first place. And this is exactly how we make it. We have 3 steps in healing the condition. The first step is clearing the Archons out. This is very easy because all you need to do is take responsibility for fear and anger, and then you cut the contracts with them. And they leave without any problems.
Whoa. I've been working with schizophrenics all my life who are hearing voices that are terrorizing them.
Yeah.
And you say, oh, all we got to do is get rid of them.
No, not them.
The,
No, I'm not talking about schizophrenia. I'm not talking about borderline.
You're talking about Archons.
I'm talking about Archons in the context of narcissism and people pleasing. All they do.
So what's the difference between the Archons in a narcissist and the ones in a schizophrenic?
They play different roles.
What they're always negative, right?
No, they're contracted. They're contracted for certain things. For example, when I look into narcissism, people pleasing,
so are the voices. The voices of schizophrenics are contracted to destroy that person. And they run a series of patterns. Negativity, they're anti-religious. They foster negative emotion and create negative emotion. They energetically drain their victims. These are all things that the narcissist does too, right? They're not positive people. They're negative.
If I'd like to say something, schizophrenics seem to have voices that they commune with. Yes. Narcissism seems to be almost like they've forgotten themselves and become the entity.
So the question becomes,
the difference is the schizophrenic is still trying to keep that off, whereas a narcissist is almost just become that. I don't know whether that helps.
Schizophrenics do that too. Okay, so what happens when they start off, and the voices themselves, schizophrenic voices themselves will tell the schizophrenic, we are you. I don't know how many prisoners I've had ask the voices, who are you? What are you? And they will respond, we are you. So they want that person to believe that those voices are them. That's who they are. Now with the narcissist, you can go, okay, the narcissist is hearing these Archons, okay? They're talking to them. Then who's doing the listening?
The soul.
That's right, the soul. So the person isn't the voice that you hear in your head. I mean, that's something else. And with schizophrenics, they run a fixed series of patterns that the psychiatric mafia absolutely denies, and they won't look at it. They will not even look at it.
I had only one schizophrenic client. And with her, she was coming from ritual abuse in this lifetime, and she had a history of ritual abuse in previous lifetimes. And she was broken to the bone. And the voices she had inside of her were all childhood soul losses of herself. She had like 5 different girls that kept coming in, and hardly the adult one. Maybe 2-3 hours a day, the adult woman was available. And whenever you had the slightest form of conflict, one of the little girls jumped in. And then she was also displaying the childish behavior, down to sitting there doing nothing, nibbling on the thumb.
Jerry, you have a really, sorry, you carry on.
So with schizophrenia, I'm not exactly sure about the precise definition we have in the room right now, because with what I experienced with schizophrenia, it never was the Archon playing out. It was mostly panicky, angry, completely distorted soul losses from human resource.
You're talking, you had experience with one schizophrenic. I've had experience with many hundreds of them. They run fixed patterns. Those Archons are the same. They say the same things. They act in the same way. They behave in the same way. They run fixed patterns.
can you give me examples of behavior? Maybe I can identify something from my
Yeah, yes, they're consistent. The number one the first one that I identified is that they're consistently negative, they're insulting, they're derogatory, and they're destructive.
Mm,
Consistently. Why,
mm,
why aren't they sometimes, negative, sometimes positive, sometimes neutral? They're not that. They're consistently negative. What holds them on such a consistent negative pattern? Something is doing that
Worldwide.
worldwide.
mm,
Worldwide. Those voices are the same here in Arizona as they were when I worked at the big psychiatric hospital in Georgia.
yeah.
And I'm working with people all over the world now, and the voices are the same with them. They run these same patterns.
Jerry, your story about the burglary of the house, I think, is very poignant. The burglaries that these voices ended up, one of your patients, I think that would serve as to explain that would really help.
Yeah, they know stuff that that the patient themselves shouldn't know. All right. So I've working in the prison. I mean, when I was at the state hospital and I started questioning schizophrenics about what these voices were saying, because none of the staff were the least bit interested in what the voices were telling them. But the ones who were listening to the voices the most were the ones that were getting in the most trouble. Right. So I'm like, well, what are they listening to? What are they hearing? So I started asking them, and I got in trouble with psychiatry right away. I got pulled into their office and said, we were told that you're asking the schizophrenics about what their voices are telling them. What you're doing is you're reinforcing the hallucination and making these people worse. That was a bunch of bull crap, but psychiatrists are so arrogant, you can't tell them anything different.
I know.
So when I got to the prison, I had a group of prisoners that were hearing voices who would tell me in real time what they were telling. So I had a window into their souls, into their thinking, into the psychosis. So, we would talk for hours and they'd say, well, the voices are telling me this now, they're telling me this now. Then we got into the background. Okay, so what you were saying is there was one where this guy said the voices would tell me which houses to break into, when to get out, when the people were up, and where to hide. So he was robbing this one house and the voices told him the people are up, get out of there. Okay, so he goes to get out. He goes to run up this alley to the left. The voices said, don't go there. The police are coming down that alley. So he goes the other way and he's running down this other street. And there's this big trash box, these big metal containers. The voices says, go hide in that box and wait till the police pass. So he's hiding in this garbage bin and the police walk right by. And as soon as the police pass, the voices are telling him, okay, now get out and run.
Okay,
he goes, no, they're too close. And the voices said, no, get out anyway. So he ran to his apartment. And when he got back, the voices were saying, good job. Good job. You got the loot. And he said, no, it's not a good job because I left the garbage. I left the treasure in the garbage bin. And the voices said, no problem. You go back and get it in the morning. But that's not the most dramatic story. There's one, this prisoner was living in San Diego. Okay. He has a big arrest list. I mean, he had the whole page full of crimes he'd committed. At the time I got this story from him, he was sane. Okay. Well, the voices told him, hey, we know where a Sesamilia pot field is. It's up in Oregon. So he was in San Diego. So you're talking 900 to 1,000 miles away. And the voices are telling him, get all your money, your $250, get 2 burlap sacks and get a machete, and we'll show you where this pot field is. Right? So he does that because he trusted these things. And he drives, with their instruction all the way up to Oregon. And then they tell him, okay, where to go. And he finally ends up on a dirt road, like 20 miles of dirt road. The dirt road ends at the base of a mountain. And they say, okay, he goes, what do I do now? The road's done. The voices said, there's a hiking trail off to your left about 50 feet away. Go over there, find it, follow it up, take your burlap bags and your machete, and just follow that thing up there, and you'll hit the pot field. So he does that, and he gets to the top of the mountain, and here's this giant Sesamilia pot field, just like the voices said. So he cuts down all the marijuana, puts it in the burlap sack, and he goes, okay, what do I do now? The voices said, well, we know where there's a federal park where you can sell it. Okay. So he goes and he starts selling this stuff in the federal park, and he makes a ton of money, and he buys all the alcohol, all the cocaine, and all the prostitutes that he wants. So he's in hog heaven as far as he's concerned. It doesn't get any better than that, you know? And then they say, we want to go fishing. So he's telling me these voices are fishermen. And I said, well, wait a minute, you're going a little too far now. I mean, do you expect me to believe the voices? Yeah, they were fishermen. They wanted to go fishing. He said, well, I went out to the Columbia River. They were telling me what bait to use, where to cast the hook, you know, when to move on. And he said, I was the only person catching fish that entire day.
Yeah.
So he did that for about 2 weeks. And then he ran out of money, and he says, I got to go get some more pot. The voices told him, no, don't do it. They're waiting for you. You go up there again, they're going to kill you. They found that you found their field. They're waiting for you. You go up there again, they're going to kill you. And it was incident after incident like that, where the voices knew stuff that the patient himself didn't.
Yeah, I've got a proper answer to your question. How do I treat that type? Because this has nothing to do with narcissism. This is the typical black magic contract. You get a benefit, and you allow the being to live in you, to suck your energy and live on your energy. It's a mutual agreement. You're happy that you have pre-knowledge of things. The police can't catch you.
No, that's not a common thing. That was not a common thing. Most of the schizophrenics I have come to me are miserable. They're absolutely miserable. They attempted suicide several times. It's not a conscious this choice.
Let's stay with this one, because from my end, I meet a lot of those contracts that have been of benefit, but at some end, even if it's karmic, you get to pay the other side of the bill. And then people come into their misery, and they suffer from the contracts they have made, and they still have the voices in them, and they want to get rid of it.
Yes, at some point they let them in.
Yeah, at some point
but they're not aware of it.
And at another point, they end up on the victim end of the game, and they realize, oh, it was a bad idea from step one. So how do I get rid of it? I quit the contract. Quitting the contract means we do it. We do it. It's a soul contract.
Yeah, the human.
We do it. We do it with a means of constellation work. We give a representant to the Archon. We extract him. We put him into someone else to speak for himself, and we have trained people who then.
So you get these voices and put them into somebody else?
Yes. We called it.
How do you get them to agree to that?
They do agree. If you're not their enemy, they're handsome.
Well, they look at anybody that's trying to help the schizophrenic as an enemy. Mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, they're all enemies. They become enemies automatically on the part of these voices.
To a certain point, I'm with you. I was in war with the black magic community for 6 years. For 6 years, we had like every 6 weeks an attempted murder hitting our end of the conflict. And don't ask me how I survived those years. And when we could get hold of an Archon, we activated violet flame immediately and burned them to ash. This is kind of the shamanic part of the work. Then, of course, they're your enemies, if you treat them like this. At a certain point, we found a method to treat them a bit softer. It's like we call it the trinary cage. You visualize.
Give me an operational definition of what you're referring to as an Archon. What in your opinion is an Archon that infests these narcissists? What is it like?
It looks like we have three different types. We've got the snakes, the spiders, and the kraken, Archons, Cthulhu.
Okay, and these people know which one infest them?
And no, but I know because I can see the Archons. I can recognize them by vision. So from my end, it's easy to see. And also you can see what chakra is affected. If someone is dealing with issues that are between fear and anger, it's a solar plexus related issue, then it's always a Cthulhu. If it's sexuality related, second chakra, it's always a spider. If it's third eye related, it's always a spider. They come in symmetry. Snake, snake, spider, spider, kraken, kraken.
Well, I've heard a lot of my schizophrenics say that when they go to describe these things, they describe them as snakes. So what's this violet flame you're talking about that you burn these things with? How do I get my hands on some of that? Tell me.
You visualize.
I need a flamethrower worth of it. Tell me about this violet flame that you burn these things with.
You simply create it by visualization. It's a spiritual technique. It's not that difficult to learn, but I would really love to give you the more refined and soft methods, because it doesn't make sense to go into a war that you do not even need to fight. What we found as the first really fruitful method is the trinary cage. You visualize a cage around yourself, or you make your client visualize a cage around himself. You kind of screw the cage fixed to the ground so that it doesn't move with you. And then you step out. And because it's a trinary cage, a human spirit can leave it. But a binary being, and all Archons are binary beings, they run on different field symmetries bioenergetically. They cannot pass through a trinary structure. So they are captured in the cage, and it doesn't matter how angry they get, they can't leave. Unless they are in with a contract. Then you need to look for the contract and renegotiate the contract. If they can leave the client.
How do you renegotiate a contract that the person doesn't even aware that they made in the first place? Now, to reinforce what you said.
Past life regression. Past life regression. You go back to the life before where you have made the contract. And then you set up a lot of people around that are displaying your social environment from back then. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. And you reconquer that story. And if you do it in a good way, the client himself will start to remember. It's depending a lot on the space you hold. If I hold a space, if I run a seminar and I hold the space, I come in with a certain heart quality that is giving the confidence that everything is solvable in love, and that we don't need to go into any conflict that gets violent or ugly. If we meet something that looks evil, we just ask, what kind of contract do you sit on, or do you have any acknowledgeable interest that we could respect? Sometimes they come with.
So you're talking to the Archon at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a channel, a clear channel that can forward.
Okay. So do you need some kind of special training to do this? Because what I've found is those voices don't want to talk to anybody other than the victim. And if the victim tries to tell them about the voices go nuts and say, you keep talking like that, they're going to grab you and they're going to throw you in the insane asylum. Okay? Now, to reinforce what you have said,
clever ones.
To reinforce what you said, I found when I was working in the hospital emergency rooms doing psych crisis, that I needed to get information out of these schizophrenics that the police had drugged in off the streets that were raw. They weren't medicated, they were raw, okay? So in order to shut those voices up, what I would do was to vividly imagine duct tape taped around their mouth, and they would shut up for 5 or 10 minutes. Now they'd eventually break out of that, but that was enough time for me to get the information that I needed clinically. Now, the other thing I did is I would put them into a box of white light and then shoot them out into space, but they would all eventually return. They did not stay away. So I need a blue flame flamethrower like you have. I mean, how do I get this thing?
Okay, the difference is my clients volunteer to come to me. Your clients are dragged to your address by the police, and you need to deal with someone
not
who's
all
not.
of them. Not all of them. I have a lot of
the ones who
schizophrenics
need to
coming
be
to me now.
taped, yes.
No, but
okay, let's go
you
with the
can use
ones.
it. You can use it on both because what you imagine vividly in your imagination is actually happening to these voices on the other side. You know, so there was one guy where I imagined the duct tape, and I asked the guy, I said, "Well, did the voices shut up?" And he goes, "No, now they're going just like they were taped up." But they always broke out and returned, even though it was against the will of the patient.
Okay, a number of experiences on my end. When I started to do the spiritual work, I considered myself being clean and healthy until I started to discover the entities within me. And I started to extract them one by one. I stopped counting at 36. So I was full of shit when I started doing this work. Then I had a period of like 3-4 years where I believed myself to be clean. And again, something appears, you need to extract it. And the reason why it does not return is because you do not consider them as an enemy, but you consider them as something that came to show you where your weak spot is. And then you close that weak spot, and then your own soul is living in that spot and filling your body with your own beingness. And then there's not even the space to return. And this is how you make them your friends. You say, okay, I haven't been filling my body with my own life, so there were gaps and holes and trauma regions where you could settle in. And thank you for making me aware.
Well, you said you kicked out 37 of these things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do you have like a demon detector? I mean, how do you find these things? Because what I find is a lot of times they're thrown into the subconscious mind and the person is not aware of them. So how do you go about finding these 37 things that that you threw out of there? I mean, how did you detect them?
Okay, I can give you kind of the list because there are various methods. The first 5 I got rid of. It was a good friend who used to work as a healer, painter, and Reiki master, 2nd degree Reiki master. He said there's something demonic in your aura. If you feel like one day, pop by, we can try to take care of this. And that was an external service. I popped by, we said, okay, let's look into it. Those were from a previous lifetime, contracted on a battlefield where I was facing death with no way around losing that battle and getting stabbed or whatever. And I contracted 5 entities to get me out of that battlefield alive. And the contract I made in that lifetime was multi-incarnational. So I had them in my aura and they were there. They didn't bother me, but they're scared of people. So it was a choice to say, okay, enough is enough. I regret I should have rather died than contracting you, you know, in that lifetime. Learn your lesson, and then you can get out of the contract if you have learned your lesson. Okay, and then the guy could pull them. And
okay, so you're talking you need a Reiki master to do this.
That was kind of the first one. The second one is more interesting to basically do it by yourself.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm
I
interested in that one.
I was in despair because I realized that I have compassion with people unless I'm I'm a perpetrator and the people are my victims. If I did something wrong, I was incapable of being compassionate. And I couldn't change that behavior in me. And it was driving me nuts because I had set that goal for me. I want to be fully conscious and unconditionally compassionate. And if suddenly you cannot access your compassion just because it's about guilt, was driving me mad. And I kind of made that decision to pull back for a month. I started with dry fasting, 6 days, 21 days water fasting. And I was sitting in one room and I did nothing except sitting, standing, or lying, heating my oven because it was winter time. And
how many people do you think would actually go through that to get rid of?
Maybe a bit more if I can explain how beautiful it was, because
I'm sure it was.
All I did was
I'm looking for something that's going to help a whole lot of people. You know, do the most good for the least amount of effort. And
think about prison. There's no better place than prison to do exactly that exercise. Sitting there, doing nothing but observing yourself.
Do you know how many of them would do that?
Yeah, but then it's not their time to heal. I'm just talking. My profession is guiding people through self-healing processes. I can say how it works.
Okay.
This is what.
So you're part of that self-healing is fasting and prayer.
Not prayer. I didn't pray. I just observe myself. If you don't have input, all the stories that are unsolved start to occupy your mind. And then you start to go mad about the stories running in your mind. And you start to listen what's happening. I didn't even know I had voices until I was sitting in silence. And then I had that one voice that was exactly this evil thing that was chatting all day, pissing on everything and everybody. Just negativity, 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 negativity. And I could locate it. It was on the side of the head, exactly here. Yeah, and at some point I had stared at it enough to say, you know what, we're done. And I take you out and I burn you to ash. And then the voice was gone. But what I needed was the time of observation and the time of de-identification. Because when you just do that in the day in, day out mode of your consciousness.
And is this what you recommend that your clients do?
Yes, yes. Become the observer, and when you can observe what talks in you, you can extract it. As long as you identify with a voice, this thing talking is both entity and you, and of course you can't extract it.
Well, I run into two types. The schizophrenics who believe that the voices are who they are, which that separation has to be made. You know, if they're ever going to recover, they can't believe what the psychiatric mafia is saying is that your brain is broken. These voices are due to a broken brain. They're you. You know, that's the worst advice that they could possibly receive. And that this schizophrenia is a life sentence. There's nothing you can do about it except take our toxic medications. And those medications actually shrink the brain. They do neurological damage. You know, if they go that route, the recovery rate is very, very low. You know, those drugs don't cure anything, but they have to be able to make that split between them and what the voices are. Now, a lot of them, they have made that split. They know that the voices aren't who they are, but they have no control over them. They don't have the discipline or the energy, because these things they're parasites. They will suck you dry. Okay. They don't have the discipline or the energy to do what you're saying to do. They just will not do it. So they're stuck with that voice, and they're watching it all the time. And it's also telling them, you know, you're no good, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're rotten, nobody loves you, you can't trust anybody. It's a constant barrage of negativities. They're not going to sit back and meditate with that going on. It's impossible. It's not going to happen.
In general, when I would formulate a general approach, the first thing you need to find out is what type of entity do you deal with? Is it an Archon? Is it a split of the same person you treat? Or is it a split of someone else? Human origin, but not that person.
Okay, so how do you go about doing that? And what is the difference in how you treat them based on these different entities? Now I've heard of the snake. I've heard of the spider. I mean, a lot of them say, yeah, this thing looks like a snake or it looks like a spider. But split personality is clinically is very rare. Or a what do they call it? A multiple personality. Now that there is a split, there is a split between the person and the voice. You know, they realize there's a difference there. And those voices are feeding off of trauma.
The most important thing is you need to understand the story of your client. If you understand the story, you can take a lot from previous experience with other clients, because things are always similar. For example, if you have people coming from ritual abuse, this would be a typical example of multiple personalities that are on top, kind of under Archon control.
Well, let me tell you this, the MACE energy method, this energetic psychotherapy, I do not need to know the story at all. All I'll need to know is how they felt about it and where it happened, and it will go in there and it will get rid of that negative identity and that negative energy at the same time, and it will no longer exist. So it's similar to getting a car battery that's fully charged up and then draining it down to nothing. Once it's drained to nothing, you can't charge it again. It's dead. It's a boat anchor. So this energy method goes in there. It actually drains that pool of negative energy that was put into the subconscious, and it dematerializes the negative identity. Now it's the spirit that does that, because John Mace found that energy flows from negative to positive. So these negative identities, they weren't created consciously, they were created unconsciously during a trauma. It wasn't like you becoming a therapist. You decided, I'm consciously going to become a therapist, or I'm consciously going to become a car driver to help you survive on this planet. These negative identities were created unconsciously, unaware of by the client, usually during a trauma, and they have stayed there. So something, I don't know how many older people, like 75 or older, that something happened to them when they were 5 or 6 years old, some bad trauma, their parents did something to them, or they were sexually molested, or something bad happened to them. Okay. And they made a decision that I'm worthless.
Okay, but then we are not
stayed there their entire life.
But then we're not talking about.
We got rid of it. We got rid of it in an hour.
But this is not talking about entities or archons. These are personalities, the way we use terminology. This would be destructive personalities.
It's a negative identity picked up by the person.
Okay.
It does kind of have a negative personality to it.
Yeah. What we do with personalities, the first method that we discovered that did work, but it's very kind of time consuming, and you need a really patient.
Well, with its MACE energy method, it's in an hour, it's gone. 1 hour. It's a whole lifetime full of bullcrap is gone. They feel lighter. They feel more grounded. It is gone. It's not there anymore.
It was observing your own compulsive behaviors until you fully understand the patterns, de-identify from those patterns, And then what we on the bioenergetic plane could see if a personality is triggered. The trigger is somewhere in the lower chakras, it's emotional, and then you have a thread of bioenergetics flowing into the stem brain, and then from the what's the name of these? There are kind of spots here, I think 8 on each side, where the personality comes out and fills the mental field with its beingness. And this is exactly the moment when you have first observed it, learned to trigger it consciously to pop out, then you can grab it, pull it out, and become aware of the trauma at the same moment, and stand in the trauma without dissociating, and then you can burn the personality and it's gone. And everything that is gone is the compulsive behavior. You do not lose abilities, you do not lose memories, you do not lose soul substance. It's just, the first one I did was my mediator. I realized whatever people around me start to struggle and fight, I need to go in between and stop them from fighting. And I realized it's not a good behavior on my end, because sometimes people just need to clear their shit. So I decided, okay, I'm not interfering anymore. But my behavior was unstoppable. Whenever 2 people started to fight, boom, I went in between. And I realized this is psychotic, what I'm doing. It's not good. In no way it is good. I need to stop that. And then I started to observe how that personality of mine is functioning, how it's triggered, how it pops out. And I learned to observe the bioenergetics until I understood them. And then I took the risk to take that shamanic approach of taking it, pulling it out, burning it like a demon. I treated it like a demon. And after it was gone, my problem was gone.
What do you do if it says, hey, I'm not coming out, I'm not going anywhere?
Oh, you can trigger it, because it's automatized behavior. This is the core quality of a personality. If you trigger the trauma, boop, it pops out, whether you want or not.
Okay, you're talking about an Archon, or you're not?
No. This is a personality created in a traumatic environment. And then the second method we today use, because it's quick, it's much quicker and more effective and more beautiful, but you need a group around it. I can share the story of the first time it worked. I had a lady from Turkey in her 50s complaining about her father, her brother, her uncle being mistreated by all the males in her family, although she's so beautiful and she's so intelligent and she does everything right, and I did not deserve to be treated like this. It went like 45 minutes complaining about others, until I had to say, sorry, lady, you came here for healing. I can help you to change yourself, but I'm not going to change your father and not your brother and not your fucking uncle, because they're not here and I don't have a mandate for them. So stop complaining about others. What do you want to change?
See, Mace has a regimen for that. They will treat that, because those complaints are coming from an idea in that person's head.
Exactly.
If you get rid of that energetic charge,
so what I did,
then people like that won't trigger them anymore.
What I did was, it was my first experiment of solving it that way. I asked the lady, do you allow me to pull off that personality from you and wear it for a moment to show you what weird behavior you display? And then I pulled it off her like a sack of potatoes from her body, pulled it on mine, and then I was representing her personality. And what my system did was going around, looking into everybody's eyes, saying, aren't I beautiful? I'm so intelligent. I just went in a circle, looking into everybody's eyes, telling them how great I am. And after one circle, she started to feel uncomfortable with my behavior. And she realized it's her. She could acknowledge her own behavior while observing it in me. And she didn't want to be that anymore. So the thing in me started to implode. And the second circle was, oh, you don't believe me. Oh, you don't like me, even if you don't like me. Oh, 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 oh. And then I imploded. And it felt like fainting for a split of a second. And I was on the ground and I could feel this tremendous trauma in my belly, like a ball of pure pain and misery and despair sitting in my body. And I took it out and blew it into the aura of the client. And then she collapsed and spent the next 20 minutes crying herself through the pain of her childhood. And that was the healing of the trauma, because for the first time, she had not that protective personality to avoid her colliding with her own negative emotions, but she had direct access with the real emotional chakra system to process all the feelings of her childhood. And she didn't complain half a sentence afterwards. Was
so
just...
there's two sections that I see with the trauma like that. One is the emotional part, like you're talking about. The second part is a decision part about who they made the decision. Who were they as a result of this trauma?
Yep.
What you said does not deal with that part. That part's a subconscious part they're not aware of.
But
okay. Mace will go after it and pull it out, identify it.
Yeah, but it imploded.
Then erase it. Well, the feeling might have
imploded in me.
The feeling might have imploded, but the decision would not have. It would still be there.
No, the mental part imploded. The emotional bit was left over, and I returned it for her to process her own emotion. There's no need. Okay. On the spiritual path, there's no need to process the mental part, because that's just executing itself. But there's a high demand.
That's not what I'm seeing. I'm saying there's a decision part, that they make a decision about who they were, and that decision is buried in the subconscious, along with the negative identity that was there that you imploded. So you hit the energy, you hit the emotion, and there's lots of times where I have clients that are actually crying, where they're working through this, they're remembering this stuff. So that's that negative energy part, but there's a decision part also that is totally separate. They make a decision as to who they are as a result of that trauma that they experienced. And a lot of times it's not a good decision, because you don't make good decisions in a traumatic state. It's something like, I'm worthless, or I'm stupid, or I'm unlovable, and it stays there, and it stays there their entire life.
Yeah, but if
You've
she
got to
observes...
go after that also.
But if
she's not going to sit there and observe anything other than the feeling that she had. And she certainly isn't in touch with the decision she made about herself as a result of that trauma. That's still stuck in the subconscious.
Jerry, if she observes her own personality playing out in me, and she decides, I do not want to be that any longer, isn't it revising the decision and getting rid of that part?
Well, I'm not so sure how easy it would be to get rid of it, just kind of going, because they're getting feedback all the time from the people around them. And lots of times they'll go, I don't like who I am, but they don't know what to do about it. Right? And most of the time they project it onto other people, because they don't want to take responsibility for it. So they will see what's in them in other people around them. And then there would be a conflict. There'll be a constant conflict unless they get rid of it. It was like I told you with the, that negative identity, it's a combination of negative emotion and a decision that they have made as a result of trauma in their background.
I see that point.
Both sections have to be dealt with, and it's in the subconscious. They're not aware of it. They experience the effects of it. Like this guy, like they hate, just keeps showing up over and over and over again. And the ego says, it's them out there. You can feel it. You can see them. They're right in front of you. It's them. They're the ones causing this. That's not the case. It's in their head. It's in their subconscious mind. And that thing keeps triggering every time one of those people come around. You have to drain that energy and then show them that decision that they made, okay, at that time. And then once this process, and like I said, the spirit is it's all part of this. Without the spirit, without that person's spirit, this thing would not work. Because that negative energy, once we create the bridge work for that to flow back to their spirit, the spirit will take that energy and it will change it into positive potential. It doesn't destroy it. It just takes it and changes it. And the person they feel calmer, they feel lighter, and they feel like they have more energy. And then you ask them, okay, go back to that trauma now. Go back there right now. How do you feel about it right now? And they say, well, I have no feeling about it. It's gone. Then you ask them about the feeling that they experienced. Okay, go back to that trauma. When you think of that trauma, do you still experience this negative feeling? And they go, no, it's gone. It's gone.
So the voices stop?
No, this isn't the voices. This is with a negative identity. Okay. So there's two things. There's a negative identity, which is in most cases, and the other cases are actually the voices, which are entities. Okay. And then there's a gray area in between. But even so, if you get rid of that negative emotional baggage, the entities feed on that negative emotion. That's their food. They go to create it. If you look at what they're telling these schizophrenics, it's all bad stuff. You're no good. You're rotten. You're stupid. You're ugly. Nobody likes you. You can't trust anybody. It's all to generate negative emotion or loosh, which they feed off of.
Loosh,
exactly.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me about loosh.
Yes. So that's what they've, now the Mace energy method, sometimes we'll get rid of the voices, but it will all the time, if the person works through it, it will get rid of that garbage, that negative emotion that they have in their gut, that these things feed off of. So it will weaken the voices because they don't have the food supply that they had before.
So if they suddenly not negative anymore and they feel upbeat, then these voices haven't got any food source. So therefore, is that a way that they come off, do you think?
Well, they
Jump
get weaker.
onto another being.
I don't know where they go, but
in and out of realms, I assume.
Yeah, I think they're still out there. They jump into somebody else, and there's what do you call it? The layers of them. So they have a supervisor. I mean, I remember one prisoner I was working with had 3 voices. We got rid of all 3. I said, okay, they're gone, and this took weeks. It wasn't quick. This is before what I know now. And they finally left, and then another one appeared. And I said, where'd that one come from? He said, that's their supervisor, and he's pissed. He was mad.
This realm comes in hierarchies.
Yes,
and
there's a hierarchy to it.
The Archons are the lowest hierarchy, and then you have the fallen angels and their shadows.
Yes, and the voices are told by their higher ups that unless they do what they're told to destroy the person they're assigned to, that they will cease to exist. And they believe that. In the times where I spoke to those things, there's the times where I would carry on conversations with them for a while. When you showed them that they did have light in them, they were furious. That surprised me. They were furious at their supervisors for lying to them about that thing. And I was like, they lie constantly. Why are they pissed off because their supervisors were lying to them? They're the liars and the sons of it. They lie about everything.
The entire hierarchy of the dark side is slowly dissolving, and you can see this breaking up in between the layers of the hierarchy. With the Archons, what we normally do is we offer them to get reconnected to Source individually. And when we started offering it, like 10% said yes and 90% rather wanted to be dissolved than to face karma, their own karma. Now 90%, 95% absolutely agree to be reconnected. So you put them in this cage and you send them up towards higher realms to get reconnected. And even the other hierarchies start to break away. Maybe can give you an example. We found the pattern. It's more common in many topics, but the pattern in bulimia. The lady said, I have voices in my head. There's one voice that says, when she was in an anorexic phase. Come on, half a piece of bread is enough for today. Don't eat more. And she had a second voice in front of her that was like very loving and very cozy, and was like, if you have starved yourself to death, then I'm going to receive you in my bulb of light. And she was caught in between the two voices. And one was kind of ugly, obviously ugly, and the other one apparently loving. And she was completely hypnotized in between those two. And we said, okay, let's put that as an assembly into the room with two people representing the voices, just to get them out of your head. And then we had like this devilish thing and the angelic thing talking to her at the same time, with the sentences she knew from her entire lifetime. And after a while, she started to panic because it was too much. Having it inside was kind of okay, but having it in front of her, it was so intense, that field. And I just told her, you know, it's your choice. Yeah, the one is behind you, the other one is in front of you. There's still a lot of space to the side. Why don't you just step out and leave those voices behind you? And she realized that she had exactly a degree of freedom at that point to leave that field. And she did it. Poof, and the voices were gone. For that moment, completely gone.
And how long did that last? Did you follow up on that?
Yes, it lasted. She's out. And then the interesting part was the voices suddenly, till then, there was this angelic one appearing really loving and supportive. And then the angelic one said, hey, we need another victim to play with. Isn't there anyone who can step in? And you had a dialogue between the two voices suddenly. And it appeared to be, from what they exchanged, that they work as a team, creating this extremely intense field of disease. That was the first one we found. And at the end of this conversation, it turned out actually it is a fallen angelic being communicating and coexisting with its own shadow. And this is how this realm of duality is created. This is what, you know, if you go back into the mythology behind, the idea of the Luciferian creation is like we go to the cinema in the evening to look at whatever, Black Hawk Down. We volunteer to go into a war scenario, although we are peaceful people, because it's a bit more exciting than to sit at home on the sofa. This is kind of the reason why these realms were created. And the angels that are basically organizing the dark realm, the dark side of duality, they are there to, to create fields of experience that are a bit more exciting than sitting in heaven and chanting that the Lord is a great guy. This was the primary concept. It kind of lost control. They kind of lost control of their own creation. It got a bit too rough. It got a bit too cruel compared to what they had planned to do. But the basic concept is there to create an environment, a matrix that it's exciting to live in, because souls want to gather experience, they want to have input, they want to experience the intensity of duality. Just that the entire experiment kind of had a bug in it, and the bug that was in it was that the restaging instinct of the traumatized planetary consciousness called Satan is so beyond repair that it keeps re-traumatizing by the attempt to restage its own demise, its own suffering. It is destroying something that goes into the same state of destruction. And it's not leading to a healing at any point. So it's kind of a state of broken spirit down to a completely isolated mental state, like a psychopath that multiplies. It wants, but it doesn't manage to. And the thing that
I've never seen any evidence that it wants. It wants to feed off of us. It's feeding.
No, it has no choice because it lost connection. If you lose connection, you take any bit of energy you can get hold of. It's not evil to want to survive. This is a necessity to survive because it disconnected from the divine source. Every human that is not connected to source is feeding on his brothers and sisters day in, day out. 90% of the communication we have is trying to steal each other's energy. The only one who is contributing and feeding the system is the children. They are still connected. They have inflow from source. And the rest of the society is disconnected, and we desperately fight for the last bits and pieces of energy. This is our culture. So I cannot blame the dark end for being hungry for energy while not being connected. And the mechanism behind is restaging the trauma. This used to be a healing mechanism, a self-healing mechanism, but it's out of control. It's out of its own regulatory resources. It's multiplying, multiplying, multiplying. It never comes to a healing because it is beyond repair. And this is kind of what is the problem in this part of the universe, that the satanic principle is out of control. And the angelic realm, the creator level, is desperately trying to fix that bug. And this is what humanity came in for. Because we are, as a genetic design, we are designed in a way that our connection to source in the heart space, runs deeper than the satanic trauma. And this enables us to stand in the satanic trauma without disconnecting, without losing connection to source. And that is kind of a long-running experiment we are living in, we are captured in, with all the creations we have in the historical records that failed and were removed because we didn't make it. Then you have a biblical flood, and then you have a new genetic setup, and we try it again. And from what I get as input from the spiritual realm is that this time we actually did make it. The blueprints for the healing of the satanic principles have been harvested. And everything we do now is basically we continue the game a little bit longer because the same love that enabled us to find the solution as a quality, not in the quantity, but as a quality, the solution has been found. The same love that enabled humans to find that solutions kind of forces us or tempts us to do the entire job and clear the entire space and bring everyone home without losing a single soul. For me, it's like I have this carpet metaphor that everything was about finding one beautiful flower in the carpet pattern, because this is our purpose, to find that flower. And now we sit here and we want to finish that carpet until it's all beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's the purpose, is to work our way back to God, where we came from.
Yeah,
and there is that divine spark.
Mm.
But I've seen many people taken over by the dark side. Some of them completely taken over.
Did you say there's an increase in it or not? Is there any increase in schizophrenia and narcissism?
Yes, there's schizophrenia and mental illness is increasing constantly. Here in the US, there's 50,000 people a year kill themselves. That's as many as died in Vietnam. And you've got more psychiatrists, more psychologists, and more psychiatric drugs on this planet now than we'd ever had in the entire history of mankind. And people are getting sicker. They're getting more mentally ill. The prisons are overflowing. The mental health centers are overflowing. The psych hospitals are overflowing. And I'm sure it's not just in the United States.
No, it's terrible here.
Yeah. And the treatment that they're giving is just so bogus. Those psychiatric drugs don't cure anything. All they're doing is they're dumping these drugs on the person's brain and turning them into zombies. So if anything, I think they're doing more harm in the long run than they are doing good.
Yeah.
And there's evidence that a lot of people will come out of this eventually on their own without these nasty drugs. You know, and here's the psychiatric mafia telling them, this is the medicine. This is a treatment. This is what you need to do. You need to take these drugs for the rest of your life. This is a life sentence. That's a lie. You know, that's an absolute lie.
Yeah, I remember I had one client and I was completely lost. Normally, I access my clients with compassion. So I copy paste them into my system. And then I have a good overview of conscious part, subconscious part, trauma. I can see everything inside of myself. This is how I approach people. And when I approached that lady, it was like diving into a black hole. I couldn't sense anything. And I was going like, what type of black magic did you contract? You know, I was searching for a really dark story in the background because obviously she was not involved with black magic in this lifetime. And after like 3 hours of digging and diving in darkness, she told me, actually, I'm depressive and I'm taking pills against depression because I need to take care of my little daughter. I need to function. And I'm on medication. And I said, okay, why don't you say that straight away? I can stop diving because there's nothing to see. If you don't feel yourself, how do you expect me to feel you? And since then, I don't accept clients that are under active medication. I tell them, go to your doctor. He caused the problem of making you addicted to the chemistry. Ask him to get you off again without losing your mind completely. This is not my business. This is the responsibility of the doctor, and he needs to deal with the crap he's doing with people.
Yeah, so a lot of those drugs are addictive. So, you know, like Wellbutrin, a lot of those antidepressants, like your patient was on, they're addictive. You know, so when they try to get off, they have these terrible withdrawals. So they don't even try. And,
Also,
I suspect they made them that way.
Pharmakia does mean witchcraft and sorcery.
Yes.
So it's probably a way of becoming a portal for these things to begin with.
Yeah. And it's not doing any good. I mean, what it does is it turns them into zombies. You know,
I lost my nan from schizophrenia when I was 21 years old. I did wonder how you can lose someone from voices in their head. And it was only to listening to you, Jerry, that you said about the medication that it clicked. 1 minute she was okay, next minute she wasn't. It was the medication that killed her. It wasn't schizophrenia. How can voices in your head kill you? They can't.
Well, they can tell you to kill yourself, and that's what they do.
Yeah, no, she was in a mental home, and
No, those drugs are extremely dangerous. They don't. I've never seen a psychiatrist sit down with a patient, and this is in like 45 years, and tell that patient how dangerous these drugs actually are. What are the side effects? They'll just tell them the most prominent side effects. Okay, you're going to get blurred vision. You're going to get a dry mouth. You're going to feel a little bit sluggish. It'll go away after a couple of weeks. Just keep taking them. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
No, it just turns them into zombies. They're just like walking hulks. It doesn't cure anything. You know, it merely treats symptoms. And it doesn't do a good job of that. And they're making $17.4 billion a year selling antipsychotic drugs worldwide, and about the same amount selling antidepressant drugs. $17 billion.
There's a great documentary called Making a Killing that goes through that. It's very old now, but it really just shows you how the DSM was created literally just to sell the drugs.
Oh, it was made up. The DSM was completely made up. They have a body of psychiatrists that meet once every 3 years, and they make these things up.
Yeah.
You know,
Just to sell the
they-
drugs.
to sell the drugs. You know, it's
Yeah.
like they have. Let me see.
How are
What
we
it
doing for
is.
time, gentlemen?
Oh, I'm okay. How long do you want to run?
If we run too long, you can split it into two halves.
Oh yeah,
No
here it is.
I'm okay with anything. Jerry,
The DSM here. This is some of the diagnosis they have in the DSM right now. The DSM-5. They make these things up. There's not a single clinical test. There's not a single any kind of objective test to prove any of the, what is it? It's 290 something diagnoses they have in that DSM now. There's not a single test for any of them. These are all subjective, made up diagnoses, and they've really outdone themselves in this time. They have one called mathematics disorder. So if you don't like mathematics, you're disordered. That's me.
And we're going to drug you.
Jerry,
Here's another one: caffeine disorder. If you drink too much coffee, you're disordered. Sibling relational disorder. If your kids are fighting with each other too much, they're disordered.
Wasn't there one for a geographic area as well? Like Florence disorder or something?
Yeah, the Florence syndrome. It's being overwhelmed by beauty, such as in Florence, Italy. The symptoms are fainting and dizziness. They recommend treatment by antidepressants. This is how whacked out these people are. Paris syndrome, mostly experienced by Japanese patients visiting France. Symptoms include depression, anxiety, feelings of persecution, which in my day would have been considered cultural shock. You know, it's like, what are all these people doing? They're so different from me. You know, so they just make these things up. You know, and they made up the biochemical imbalance thing too. You know, it was like until in the late 1980s, after a release of the landmark antidepressant Prozac, the idea of a chemical imbalance hit the psychiatric mainstream. As psychiatrist Peter Brigham brought up, he points out in his book Toxic Psychiatry, the drug company Eli Lilly advanced the chemical imbalance theory as a marketing scheme to sell their new drug Prozac. It was a scam. There was, of course, no demonstrable evidence showing that depressed patients had any imbalance, but Lilly ran with it anyway, even knowing that it was a lie. Before long, psychiatrists and psychiatric patients alike came to identify with the idea that mental disorders are caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's a complete fabrication. It's been disproved over and over again, and they're still pushing it. But now they say, oh, it is believed that schizophrenia is due to a biochemical imbalance of the brain. They have no proof of it whatsoever.
Jerry, we're not going to win that war today.
We can wake people up.
What I wanted to suggest, because I realized we have both so much to say that there is hardly enough space for a bigger picture. I would like to share what I described as the beauty of conditions, because the most fruitful point in my work is to go with nature by understanding the purpose of the conditions, because then you can go with them. And if you do everything right, you go through the cycle within 40 minutes and people get out healed on the other end. So please give me the time to...
Okay, here, give me an example. I'll give you a schizophrenic, okay? He's hearing voices. He hates them. He wants to get rid of them. They're driving him crazy. They're telling him to kill himself.
As I said,
what would you do?
With the voices, the first thing is to clarify who's talking. So this is not
It's the voices talking.
Yeah, but where does the voice come from?
They come from outside the patient.
Is it human origin? Is it Archon origin? Is it a split of the patient himself? Is it a split?
Well, how do you determine if it's a split of the patient himself?
You go into the story, and this is complicated stuff. It's nothing you can
okay, so that's
outline
not
as
that's not useful to the average guy.
It's not the excess I can share. We can access it, but it's very individual.
Okay, this person is hearing voices coming from outside their head, telling them to kill themselves and maybe kill somebody else. What do you do?
I identify the origin of the voice.
Okay, how do you do that?
By going back in his medical, going into conversation, going back into the medical history, into childhood conditions, to basically see what pattern displays.
Okay, the
And
pattern
then,
is severe emotional, psychiatric, or sexual abuse. That's the pattern.
okay,
It's patterned with
okay.
most all of them.
Yeah,
It's there.
I agree.
Very,
90%.
very few schizophrenics have
Okay.
not had some kind of horrendous trauma in their background.
Okay,
Virtually
okay.
all of them do. Okay, so
Okay.
you got it.
Then,
the person is sexually abused.
Okay, let's say the person is sexually abused and it's originating from there. Then I ask him to recall the abuse if he is capable of memorizing it. Sometimes it's early childhood, then you need to apply a different technique. If
Okay,
it's
do you ask them to tell you about that abuse?
I'm asking them to tell me about it. And
okay,
then
how do you think they're going to feel about that?
In that moment, trauma is popping up again. And this is my duty to keep.
And they're not going to want to go over that again.
What I do with them is I invite them into a fantasy where they win the fight. If it's like early childhood abuse, the little four-year-old one is lying in bed, daddy comes and starts to fumble around and stick something somewhere where it does not belong. The fantasy goes like, take your feet, kick daddy away and scream at him, no! Go away, you hurt me. Because this is exactly what the child could not do because it was depending on the love and the support of the parent. As an adult, you revisit the incident. If you go dive into it emotionally, you can take a different path and go out of the memory with a solution that keeps you safe in your here and now.
So what you're trying to do is recreate something that happened in the past and get them to believe the new story. And what if they don't?
Yeah, they do. We have 95% success with it.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try it. I got plenty of patience. Yeah. I'm going to try that. I have my doubts. Yeah. I have serious doubts because you're not dealing with the decision. Still, you're not dealing with the decision they made during that trauma.
The decision was to allow the abuse. The moment they remake the...
There could be a whole variety of decisions they made. Something's wrong with me. Or nobody will like me unless I let them do these kind of things to me.
But okay. when you go back, you are the child again, and you realize what daddy did was wrong. I have every right in the world to refuse.
But they understand that anyway. From where they already understand that.
But
they already know that what it was wrong was wrong.
But they never went through the fantasy of rebelling in the moment when it happened. And this is the key. This is the key that sets them free, to experience themselves as someone who can take care of themselves successfully. And it 100% works. The thing is, when they don't remember the abuse, normally they say, I can't remember. I was maybe 3 years old. I have no memory of that time. What you do when they can't remember is you change the perspective. And you tell them, observe yourself from above, because a small child will definitely dissociate when it happens. And a small child has observed what happened from the corner of the room. It's not in the body when it's abused, it's outside. And so you change the perspective, you look from above, and this is giving people access to the memory again. And they see something. And then they can re-enter the story from the external point of view. They can dive into the body in the right moment.
So you have them dive into the body as an adult and kick the father?
Yeah.
Okay, and
bam!
You're saying it's that simple.
It's that simple.
I will test it out. Believe me,
Do
I will
it.
test it out.
Yeah.
I have plenty of patients to do that with.
Yeah. But I wanted to give you the big picture of not schizophrenia, but there are three conditions I consider as being a spectrum without people recognizing it's a spectrum. And it's the narcissism, people-pleasing thing at the first place. Then below that you have borderline. And below that you have sociopathy. And below that you have psychopathy.
Okay, what do you do with the borderlines?
Let me first explain how it builds up on each other. Because what I observe or what I experience is nature seeing that children are overwhelmed with traumatic experience, and it takes over control in two steps. The first step is allowing feelings to happen, but not under the control of the day consciousness. And the second step is completely deleting the feeling. When you have like people-pleasing versus narcissist in the codependency.
So how do you delete the feeling?
Not yet. There, the feeling is not deleted. It's still allowed, but it's not under the conscious control of the patient. The narcissist will have his fits. He's getting angry without being in control of it, and the people-pleaser is experience fear without the ability to process and transform the fear. So those two feelings, anger and fear, are the ball game in this codependency, and both do experience the emotions, but they have limited control over it. This is kind of step one. Step two is borderline, when the other feelings, if you take the internal perspective of a borderliner, it's like opening a door to a trash room and all the emotions fall on top of you at once. And it's completely impossible to process that amount of distorted, overwhelming feelings. So it is deleted from your, temporarily deleted from your day consciousness. You're mentalized.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
No, I'm just describing. I'm doing nothing yet. How we do it, I'll explain afterwards. First, I need the picture of how the conditions develop.
So you have this closet full of garbage.
So what the borderline, it's also an archetype. And what the borderliner archetype does, he basically blocks all emotions. And then he defines episodes where the borderliner can experience a single emotion in a very highly defined context. He will have a depressive episode and experience sadness. He will have an angry episode, experience his anger. He will have fear and experience the other type of depression. He might experience self-destruction impulses, but it's always kind of one single feeling that is taking the entire room, and all the other garbage is kept aside. So the archetype is teaching the borderliner to cope with his own emotionality without being overwhelmed by the entirety of the feeling. With his psychopath, feeling is completely deleted. The last emotion that is left to him is something, it's called fear, but it's something else. It's kind of the feeling I might lose control. This is the only emotional bit in a psychopath. And what he does, he is like a maniac, restaging his traumatic events to get hold of the picture of the traumatizing event. And it doesn't matter in what constellation. He can be the perpetrator and have a victim, and he's restaging what he has suffered as a victim when he was a child. It's all about the pictures. And then he has this mental bubble around it that is explaining to himself what he's doing. My favorite example is kind of the lady killer that is cutting the lady into slices, trapping her on her bedroom scenario in the golden ratio. And he says, I'm an artist because I understand the golden ratio. You have a mental field that is coherent, that is covering the madness to enable the guy to experience just the information part of how his trauma looks like. And he wants to be caught. No, this is kind of the psychopath already. The sociopath still has a conscience inside, and he will only do things that are socially accepted. A heart surgeon might be a perfect sociopath who cuts open the heart of patients in the hospital to see what's inside, because he's looking for something he has lost himself. I'm married to a nurse. She knows a lot of those doctors. So this is kind of still with a divine spark inside. You have connection to your conscience, and you will not harm anyone consciously. So you need to find a slot where you can restage your trauma. You go to a biochemical company and test medications on animals. Yeah? Cruelty in pure form, but you have a cover story that allows your spark to survive. But when the spark is lost, this is kind of the last straw, the last connection to any human sense, then there's no limitation to what you can restage, and then you have a full-blown psychopath. So what we see is kind of a continuing and growing loss of control of your emotionality, processing your own feeling, and first the control, and in the second step, the access to feel anything at all. You end up as a completely mentalized form that can learn by heart how it looks like when someone feels something, but you don't feel anything anymore.
You're still missing the decision. That you're consistently leaving out the decision that the person made during the trauma. It's closing on 2 hours here. I got to get going in a little bit here.
Okay. The decision for me is always the attempt to survive. If I am in a traumatic event.
Well, that is true. You make a decision.
I make a decision to survive. I have no other choice.
When you're in a trauma, that's true. You make a decision to survive.
Yeah.
But that decision that you make, that you think when you're in the trauma, is a survival decision. When you come out of that trauma, 99% of the time you find out it's not positively applicable to the other rest of your life.
And this is exactly what we do. We revisit the story, how it came to be like it is, and then we go into that heart space and redo the decision, deciding I change myself back to healthy.
Okay, I'd love to see that. I'd love to interview some of your clients. I really would. I'd love to get my hands on a handful of them and talk to them about how that works. Yeah,
let's get them in. Can we do a follow-up? Get in some clients.
Yes, please. And with you, Jerry, did you find the MACE method did diminish these voices, or how far have you managed to get the MACE method to work in your?
Well, there's like a gray area there. You have the negative identities, which is a trauma-based trauma. That you have the negative energy, you have the negative decision. Okay, and then there's a gray area where the person sometimes thinks that. I had one yesterday. They thought they saw that negative identity as a black demon, you know. And when we got rid of it, that disappeared. But then there's other areas where these are actual entities. They don't want to leave. They don't want to go anywhere. They view anybody who's trying to help the patient as an enemy. Okay? So mothers are enemies, fathers are enemies, wives are enemies. They're telling the wife that the husband's cheating on her, the husband, the wife's cheating on her. They want control and they want food. And they could care less about the victim. I mean, if they can get the victim to kill themselves, you wonder, well, if they're feeding off these victims, why are they trying to get them to kill themselves? You know, the reason is because if they can get the victim to kill themselves, then the entire family circle and all the friends suffer. You know, they go, oh, what could I have done? You know, what could I have done? Well, how much of this was my fault? I should have done something else. I mean, I should have helped them.
So
You
the
know, I should have
entities
seen
can
this.
feed off the rest of the family unit then,
Yes.
through the
Yep.
misery.
Yeah.
So we
So
are
they,
talking about Lush a lot of the time here.
yes. Yep. We're talking about Lush. You know,
Yeah.
they want that food, and they want it. I had it one time, one of them came out of one of the prisoners I was working with, and it told me straight up. So this guy, he knocks on my door, and what we were doing was breaking up these patterns. And I would give them homework to find out, okay, how did that work? And one guy came in and he said, the voices want to talk to you. That had never happened in about 20, 25 years. It was always, the conversation was through the patient, okay, and the voice. So the patient would tell me, oh, the voices are saying this, you know, and then I'd say, well, tell them to go stick their head in the toilet or something like that. So it was always through the patient. They were like the interpreter. But this guy comes in, I don't know how he got into the medical department, but he knocks on my door one day and he goes, the voices want to talk to you. And I'm like, they want to talk to me personally? He goes, yeah, they want to talk to you personally. And I said, okay, come on in, close the door. And we sat down. They said, what do they have to say? And these words came out of his mouth. You have no right to interfere with our way of life. You know, and I was like, whoa, that what are plural. Okay. And then the prisoner said, that wasn't me, that was them. They said that. I didn't say that. You know? So that's where it broke with me, that this wasn't some kind of something in their mind, like this was an entity. Okay, so this kept going, and I kept working with that guy. And then one day another one, as he's leaving my office, he turns around and he says, you know what you're doing is dangerous, don't you? He looks me in the eye, and I had never thought about it. You know, it's like, well, where'd that come from? And I just looked at him, and he looked at me, and he turned around and walked away. And I didn't know what to do with that. I just kind of filed, you know, it was a warning, you know. And then the next thing that happened is this one guy came into my office, and I was always asking schizophrenics questions, you know, like, what are they saying? How do they work? What are they doing? You know, what patterns are they running? And I found this book by Miguel Ruiz. It was called The Voice of Knowledge, where he was talking about these things as being energetic vampires. So I brought that into the prison, and I was going to ask one of the guys I was working with, and I think it might have been the same guy that gave me the warning. And I started reading him a paragraph where this guy was talking about the voices being energetic vampires, stealing their life energy. And when I got to that part, I looked up at him, and he looked like he was a zombie. He was just staring at me with this blank, cold look. He wasn't moving. He was just like frozen. And, you know, I'm like, you know, what's going on with him? And so then I heard this crackling behind my head. It was like an electrical welder, you know, the crack, crack, crack. And I'm like, what the frick is going on? And it cracks all the way over to the wall on my right, and it starts crackling up the wall. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't smell anything, but I could hear it, and it was loud, and it was moving at a 45-degree angle up my office wall. I look at him and I said, do you hear that? And he says nothing. He's just staring at me with this weird look. And I'm thinking he's going to attack. So I push my chair against the wall, and I'm trying to see whatever this crackle is. I couldn't smell anything. I couldn't taste any. I could hear it, but none of my other senses picked up anything. It moved all the way across the wall, and then it moved back down again. And it jumped into a Rubbermaid trash can near my left leg. And there's crackling in that trash can. And I bend over and I look, and there's nothing in it. Nothing. It was empty. The inmate porter had emptied it the night before. And I look up, and as soon as I look up, boom, it stops, goes quiet. And I look at him, and he slowly gets up, and he goes, I gotta leave. And he turns around and he walks out, and I'm like, go, get out of here. I don't want, you know. So he leaves, and I'm in shock, because this wasn't just a short 10-second thing. This went on for 20, 25 seconds, circling my entire office and then going back in that trash can. And then he doesn't tell me anything. He turns out and he walks away. But I was so shocked that I didn't see anybody the rest of that day. I just closed my office. I didn't see anybody. At that point, I knew beyond a doubt that these things were entities, that there was something there that wasn't. I went out in the hallway. I looked out. The nurse's office was empty. The doctor's office was empty. There was nothing that could account for that crackling sound. So it shocked me. I sat staring out the windows all through the rest of the day, knowing now that these things were entities. These things were, they weren't some figment of the imagination. They weren't some subconscious something in the brain. These were entities. And my denial system just completely collapsed after must have been 25, 30 years that I didn't want to believe this. I believed for a lot of time that they were hallucinations of some kind, but that didn't make any sense because they ran patterns. They started running patterns. They're running patterns. They can't be hallucinations. So that was out. So it was probably 3 to 4 months later before I called that guy back into my office. I didn't want to see him. And he shows up and he looks good. I was expecting him to be a mess, but he looked good. He looked like he had plenty of energy. And I said, boy, you look good to me. I said, come on in, sit down. And I said, you surprised me with, you have a lot of energy. And he goes, yeah, I've been doing what you told me to do. I haven't won the battle, but I haven't gotten deeper into it either. So it's a Mexican standoff. And then I sat down and after some small talk, I asked him, I said, do you remember the last time you were in here months ago? And he goes, yeah, I remember. And I said, did you hear that crackling? And he said, yeah, I heard it, but I was surprised that you did. And I said, what in the blazes was that? He said, that was the voices. And I said, what in the dickens were they trying to do? And he said, they were trying to scare you off. And I said, well, they did a damn good job of it. And I said, you looked like a zombie when you left my office. And you shuffled out. You didn't walk out. You shuffled out. I said, what were the voices telling you at that time? He said, they were telling me to go get a shank and stick it in your belly. And I said, oh, he wouldn't do that. I've been working with him for 6 months. He wouldn't do something like that. So I said, well, why didn't you do it? And he said, I couldn't find one and nobody would give me one. So none of the other prisoners on the yard would give him a knife. So that's where I fully realized that these things weren't something floating around in their head. These things were, they were entities and they could think and they could reason and they wanted to destroy these patients. That was their entire purpose. They wanted destruction. They wanted these people destroyed.
Yeah, Jerry, I'm 100% with you because I remember 4, 5, 6 years of my life when I was fighting exactly the same battles. And it was life-threatening. And luckily, my then partner was a shaman and she had dragons around that acted like bodyguards in that type of situation. I would have had someone for my defense. So this is, I guess, the reason why I survived. But also, I need to share that in some magical way, we as human define our status. If we accept duality as a principle, then these things are evil. When we manage to take the inner steps into what in the spiritual realm is called unity consciousness, they stop being evil. And it's like a mirror function of your own fear and your own aggression that
you do have to move in a positive spiritual direction. That's what does it. But
and then
they don't leave so easily. The patient can go to church all he wants. He can read the Bible, and all they do is scream.
They
can't stand it.
Psalm 23.
They can't stand the 23rd Psalm. It's like burning them with a blowtorch.
Yeah.
You know, one patient came to my office and he said, when I repeat the 23rd Psalm, the voices react like worms thrown on a hot frying pan.
Yeah.
So you have to move in that direction, but just merely praying, just merely going to church will not get rid of them.
No, 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 no,
You know.
absolutely not. But I don't have intention of destroying them. But what I realize,
Well, you can't destroy them because they're energy. You can't
no,
destroy energy.
It's possible. You can turn them into free energy if you apply a proper violet flame. Nothing is left of them. But then another one comes and goes into the same spot because the spot is not cleared.
Well, that's true too.
If you take that approach of declaring self-responsibility, I experience what I experience because I am who I am. I change myself to experience something else. Then you don't put the blame on the mirror.
But they've got to realize that they're being affected by these things. All of us are. You're walking along, minding your own business, and you have this horrendous, nasty thought to punch the guy in front of you or spit on somebody. That's not your thought. That's these things coming in there.
I know.
You have to realize that those thoughts don't belong to you. And from the time we're born, we're assuming that every thought you have in your head belongs to you. And the Indians used to say you have two wolves on one shoulder, two wolves on the other shoulder. It's the ones that you feed that are the ones that are going to grow. So if you start feeding that negative thought, if you start reacting to that negative thought, if you start believing that negative thought is you start moving in that direction. Okay. And you don't even have to you have to understand that every negative thought that comes into your head does not belong to you. That's not who you are. Okay. You're the one listening to that negative thought. You don't have to let it in. You don't have to do what it says, you know, and we're all being attacked all the time.
Yeah. And this is what we do, kind of bringing the clients into this state of self-responsibility, to take responsibility for their own clearing and for their own the reintegration of the human soul that has left. We're dealing mostly on the fundamental level. We are dealing with trauma.
I haven't seen very many schizophrenics at all that could clear themselves. That's very, very rare.
Harald, what about the thing on your website, the solution-based? Do you think you haven't mentioned that tonight? I wondered if that would work. When I sent you, emailed you recently, soul unit, is it called something?
It's a little helper. It's a little helper if the ability to feel is lost on the biochemical plane. You know, you have like, normally we consider emotion to be something in the field. The feel enters the chakra, then you have a type of crystal that transforms the field emotion into the neuronal recognition of this is what I feel. Kind of, there's a transfer from trinary to binary entering the nervous system. And those crystals who form the interface, then they can be damaged. This is what the vaccine, the COVID vaccine is doing, damaging those crystals. So we developed something in the context of COVID that showed to be extremely helpful with early childhood traumatization. Because when a child is traumatized in a very early age, those crystals don't even develop.
Where are the crystals? In the biofield or under the fascia,
It's somewhere
in the brain, maybe?
No, connecting tissue between bone and nervous system.
Oh, that's the fascia, the interstitium higher. Yeah.
This is
piezoelectric.
From the crystal, it's apatite.
Okay, it's the crystal.
It's calcium phosphate. This is kind of the type of the crystal that is doing it, and sometimes these crystals are either not developed or overgrown by iron phosphate, which is orthorhombic, not hexagonal as a crystalline structure. So an Archon can trigger that orthorhombic crystal because the orthorhombic combines with binary consciousness. An emotion can only be transformed by a hexagonal crystal to an electric impulse. And this is sometimes kind of the disability of the body to feel at all. So you have that little biochemical helper to recrystallize the interface to enable you to feel again.
Be interesting to see if you could send that to Jerry just as an experiment, because that would be, that's an oral supplement, isn't it?
I can. Well, actually, we don't get anything into the United States except of the pure information. And we found someone that is basically taking in the information bit of those medications, creating new carrier substances that match in the United States.
Yeah, imprinting the frequencies.
Imprinting the frequencies on US-made carrier substances so that we can bypass FDA.
Yeah.
I can send you the link to them so you can order the Sol unit from them.
Yeah.
And it's like when I remember kind of normal people taking it, people who have already done their spiritual work, who became my co-workers, are extremely compassionate. They took this Sol unit and they almost lost their mind because just spraying it once within minutes made feeling so overwhelming that it became too much for them.
Yeah.
So it is quite potent in that.
So we're talking about shapes to try and simplify the science. And Dan Winters talks about this as well, about inhabiting your own array. So as trauma just shrinks our biofield, our aura, it becomes damaged, there's holes, we're the wrong shape, if you like. And then if you're a certain shape, you're allowing these entities to come into, is what you're saying, binary. Can you go through that? The binary, trinary, we're binary, are we, humans?
No. The main geometry of our field structure is a 12-star. A 12-star in the heart chakra, if you look at the heart chakra 3D, it has two rotational symmetries. It has the 12 and it has the 5 because it's a dodecahedron as a symmetrical form. And within the heart chakra, you can display all the other chakra geometries. So the solar plexus comes in from the material plane with a 5. The 5 is in the dodecahedron. It's not in the 12, but it's kind of the other axis of the dodecahedron. You have the mental that comes in with a 2 that goes into the 12. You have the instinct from the root chakra that comes in as a 4. The 4 goes into the 12. You have the lower emotions that come in as a 6 and a 3. Both go into the 12. You have got the crown chakra that is also coming in with a full 12. So it is possible to integrate every single emotion we have into our heart consciousness. When we have this access to the heart consciousness, it is a unique feeling of existence. You cannot say, I think with my heart, although there can be a voice in your heart, but the voice will fully integrate with the emotion it carries. You cannot put it apart in the heart consciousness. There's no way of having a contradiction in the heart consciousness. You cannot say, oh, I look at that lady, she's got a beautiful butt, I'd like to have sex with her, but also I'm married, so I don't want to mess up my marriage. You get into a conflict if you have your heart consciousness integrated. You will not even look at that beautiful butt because you know you're married. It's somebody else's butt, and you love your woman, and within the heart consciousness, there is no conflict possible. And what we do as a tool of diagnosis, we clearly observe the frequency patterns that come through the body. Like when I'm in the mental state, I can talk with my head and my voice is very limited to high-pitched frequencies, and nobody's going to take me serious like this, because everybody who has a heart will originally realize that I'm a mental case. If I take my mind and I learn to control my throat chakra, it sounds a bit better, but it's not, because it's just fake. Because when I really control my throat chakra from my heart, my voice is having a completely different tone. It's becoming warm and soft and loving. Sometimes it's enough to activate heart frequency in the speech, and the client will just fall apart and cry himself through every single bit and piece of his trauma, just because he's touched by that voice. And then you have like the detached anger of the narcissist, or of the entity that displays anger because it controls the lower part, which goes like Hitler or Himmler, like completely broken voice. But if you access your anger in form of the divine anger, you can get angry, and there's no cut in your frequencies. There's no single bit you do not kind of use. There's no brokenness in your voice. And still you can get really angry, and this divine anger is medicine for everyone. And you can go lower. This is something I'm not doing now, because you can go into intimacy, and you can go into that shamanic state where you completely absorb the information from Mother Earth and allow her to speak through you. This will be the shamanic singing. And every chakra constellation is recognizable when you know how to read the voice. And this is kind of the first thing we gather as information when we deal with patients. Go into the state of compassion, take a picture of the inner world of the client into you. It doesn't need a single word, you feel the one. Then you make the voice analysis to see what chakra activity, you match the two. Normally it's a perfect match. If it's not a perfect match, you need to dig a little bit deeper to gather more intel about what's happening. But normally it's a perfect match. And then you open the channel from your heart chakra. You can go into that space. You can connect to the higher self of the client, and he will give you the key for the day. The higher self of the client, is going to decide what's going to be healed on that day. And sometimes you get a number, like my heart drops a 4. And then I go like, what happened when you were age 4? And immediately you've got the crying, and you're in the middle of the trauma resolution, because he was whatever, beaten up or abused or whatever age 4. And you 100% trust. Sometimes you get a picture. Funny story. I had a client.
Hey guys, I'm running out of time here. We're closing on 2.5 hours. I got a client in another 15 minutes. I need to run.
Take your time.
Okay. I'm going to bow out.
Okay, we'll carry on. I'll speak to you soon, Jerry. Thanks for coming today.
Okay, my website's jerrymarzinsky.com. There's a whole lot more information on the voices and the Mace energy method there.
And I'll put the links in the description and share it and send you the video.
I look into the method, because sometimes we need the shortcuts as well.
Yeah,
so
I think you'll find it quite beneficial.
Yeah, it's very quick and permanent. Called the Mace energy method.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Take care, Jerry. Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
I can't remember what we were saying then. You was in the middle of, where was we?
I was with that example of what types of transfer you get from clients. His case was that he had a legal issue, and he was invited to court, and he couldn't speak in front of court. He was just, he couldn't get his voice out. And he didn't know why, and he desperately sought psychological help to get his voice there, because he needed to be heard in his truth. And what I got was a picture of a bicycle and of a tricycle. And I went like, what is that? You know, how am I supposed to work with this hint? It's completely nonsense, useless. Please, universe, give me something that makes sense. But I said, okay, this is what I get. This is what I need to work with. And I asked him, what did your parents buy first for you? Did you have a tricycle? Or did they buy you a bicycle? And he burst out in tears. And he said, neither nor. My parents were so poor. All the children around had a tricycle and a bicycle, and I had nothing. And I turned 16 when I got my first bicycle, and it was way too big for my size. And I tried giving a ride with it, and I just fell over, and everybody else laughed. And it was his main trauma that was hit, yeah, that expressed itself in that way. And I said, "What the heck? Why are you in court? What charges are against you?" And he said, I founded an association. I had an offer of some magic money multiplication scheme. And I founded an association, and I wanted to collect membership money, multiply it magically, and then buy BMWs and Mercedes-Benz on the name of the association to allow the members to drive a beautiful, high-ranking car. And what he did was kind of trying to delete his childhood trauma with that association. Just that the money multiplication scheme failed. And he stepped out in time. He said, this is not working. I'm stepping down. I'm leaving this business because it's getting fraudulent. He was correct with what he did. But the guy who took over tried to put the blame on him instead of taking his share of blame because he ran it to the ground. And then we just clarified that trauma with the bicycle-tricycle thing, which gave him a fully conscious access to his pain. And then I told him, you know, when you go to court and when you feel you can't speak, say only one sentence first. Being blamed for this makes me speechless. This is the truth you can always say. And when you start talking, you can continue talking and just bring out your story. And he was good with that. Yeah. So this is kind of my experience. Whatever you get as a hint, it's leading exactly and as quick as possible to the tiny little point that opens up for the solution, whatever it is. Sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's a number, sometimes it's a picture, and you take it from there. This is kind of
it's feedback, constant feedback that you're getting from the universe. And if you see it from the victim point of view, you don't move forward. But when you see it from an educational point of view, everything's a lesson for you. Before, one thing I didn't get to do when Jerry was here, and I'd really like your view on it, is we was talking about these being entities, and I had an interview of a lady who was with a schizophrenic, and she had CCTV cameras set up all over her house. And this is her partner kept shape-shifting across the CCTV camera. So this is her partner walking past the CCTV. Every picture of him, his body is fine. And then we have, I just wondered if you'd recognize that as any kind of entity. To me, there is a face, human kind of face here. And then this face here, what do you make of that? Does it look like any Archon that you've seen? Have you frozen, Harold?
No,
oh, no, you're there.
I'm,
sorry, you just look like
I'm trying to tune into the picture. I can't tell from the picture because it's really blurry, And you can see a lion in every formation of clouds. You find something that looks like something.
Yes, of course.
This is kind of the human eye that tries to find sense and patterns. From the feeling, from the sensation, it looks like big white gray.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure.
So this was a woman that I interviewed recently. She had a schizophrenic partner who was arguing with them voices. At one point, he actually had a hand around her throat, and he was arguing with the voices about whether she was going to call the police and put him in prison. He died in the end. This is also another picture. This one blows my mind. This is the partner walking across naked, getting ready to go out for the evening, but his hand is in this very strange white ghost-like figure.
Weird.
Isn't
Haven't seen anything like that.
So she put CCTV cameras up because she kept seeing the apparition everywhere. It's while he was alive. Now he's dead, as far as I'm aware. One more where this black being kept turning up. And a very interesting thing is they were both taking meth, the drug meth. And when you look into it, there are meth monsters and like meth like entities. So we're talking about a portal again, aren't we? They're feeding off of these people because they're in such a low state, possibly?
Yeah. They're feeding off it. It's really hard to say. We have a zoo of entities. Talking about Archons is like talking as if planet Earth is only inhabited by humans. No elephants, no dolphins, no. These are kind of the main civilization building beings. We have overlays from so many corners of the universe. We have observers that are just curious what's happening. We have even beings from completely different dimensionalities being here. The worst thing we ever met was dragon moth. Being obsessed with a dragon moth. You have like 4 years and it's completely draining life force. You lose your hair, you lose your teeth, you lose your fingernails, and you just dwindle away to death within a decade. And no chance to negotiate. They just laugh their heads off because we are 3-dimensional, they are 4-dimensional. If you pull them out, they open a portal inside of you and sneak in from inside without you even not being able to apply any protective shield against it because they appear within you.
Yeah, if you don't inhabit your own soul, something else can, it would appear.
Yeah, but this is mostly coming in by contract from previous lifetimes.
Yeah,
so this is the only way to deal with it. You go back in the history, see what did I do wrong back then, what was my mistake, what did I fall for, and if I understand my mistake, and if I really, really regret that I have made that mistake, there is always one option, which is asking for mercy. But this is the last option, and it's only available if you really, really, from the depth of your heart, realize I fucked up, and there's no way I can fix it myself. This is what it needs for mercy.
And then who fixes it? Because I think that's the problem, is a shortage of people like you and Jerry.
The divine.
The divine, yeah.
The divine is fixing everything just like that. They don't have any problems with anything. We have the problems.
Soul.
Yeah, we have the problems to acknowledge how great the divine realm is, because we think we can do it all ourselves, and the way we do it, it's better in any case. And the pride and the ego, this is everything that if you manage to get rid of that part, there's always a solution.
Yeah.
Sometimes solution is death. But
In
then
that person's case,
yeah.
it was, and he was into witchcraft as well. He used to disappear off into the woods in a tent and do spells and try and get her involved in spells.
Yeah, free choice.
Contracted again, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the big difference between Jerry and me. I'm getting all the cases who volunteer for healing.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I had a much better field to research positive option
Yeah.
than when you go into a field of knackards and mad people who love to be evil, who are criminal and thrive on it, have a good time with their entities, and then you try to fight their entities. Automatically you get into savior role, and this option to enter the unity consciousness realm is
So
kind
we're
of hard to
talking
access.
of varying degrees of possession here, to simplify it for the
Yeah.
audience. It's a varying
Yeah.
degree of possession. Yeah, saying schizophrenia being at the top, where although
Yeah.
narcissists don't ever want to change either, almost it feels like to me they are completely taken over, whereas the schizophrenia is actually having a chance of fighting the voice. The narcissist is okay with the evil, whereas the schizophrenia is trying to combat that side of him.
Yeah, if you, yeah, I mean, I experience the schizophrenia. It's a word, and the description it gives, I have experienced within ritual abuse, ritual programming. There you have phenomena that look like schizophrenia, and in high degree borderline. Kind of, if you look at borderline as a spectrum for itself, in the highest degree, you have multiple personality disorder. There you find the splits. And sometimes it is both. Sometimes you have splits that are coming from previous lifetime ritual abuse that display in a normal lifetime without ritual abuse, but create the pattern, recreate the pattern. And the only path we found till now is really get into the history, clarify where it happened, when it happened, go to the root cause, and fix the story where you lost the.
So you rewrite history by replacing it with a positive outcome. And it sounded a little bit like inner child work, where you're going back and being the parent at that point, where you would kick the abuser out.
Yeah, redoing the decisions in a better. Yeah. And the only thing I can do as the, not the healer, but the one who is accompanying someone in self-healing, is I can keep up the confidence, everything is doable. From my experience, I'm not afraid of anything. We treat ritual abuse, programming this lifetime, no problem. I'm not afraid of anything. I had people freaking out, getting their killer personality activated, trying to assassinate everyone in the room. We deal with it, no problem. You know, I'm completely in that state of trusting source and universe, that only things that can be solved end up on my table. And because this is what it is, we solve everything. Sometimes it takes 1, 2, 3 attempts, sometimes only one, but it's possible.
Yeah.
And this is kind of one thing. The other thing is being aware of the blueprint of healing. From our experience, this is the steps you need to take to get through. And if possible, one is in the room that has had the same problem and has derived his blueprint from his own experience. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yes. I was completely messed up, so I hold like blueprints for 75% of the things I treat. Some things I haven't been in. And there, for me, it's difficult. I'm happy if I have someone in the room that has been there and has gotten out, because then his blueprint can guide through the way. It's the part of inspiration. You can't replace inspiration by anything. It's necessary.
Yeah.
And then you simply have that trust, you deliver the inspiration, you are the mirror that sees conscious and subconscious by compassion. So you can constantly reflect on how it's going and say stop, or try this or try that, to get access to deeper layers of consciousness. And then you just map the story, find the root cause, and redo the decision in the root cause.
In that time frame of
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful if you have like people to represent the environment. You make like family constellation work. It's integrated with past life retrieval. We treat as family constellation work. And we also look within the family, the single incarnations. Where have they been in before? Like I learned it from someone. He was the son of a stupid Freemason, and he was carrying that spell that he needs to carry an Archon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we looked into the story. It was his grandfather who had sold the entire family line to the Archons.
Yeah.
And he was sitting on the contract of his grandfather. And then I said, okay, then we can't do anything because he's not here. We can represent him, but we cannot force him to make a decision to dissolve the contracts. And then we tested, is it possible that he himself is the reincarnation of that grandfather? Very likely he was. And then he could take responsibility and make the decision.
This is why he came down here to begin with, probably to finish the job.
Yeah, yeah, and this is what we experience. We have always like beautiful arcs, like stories developing, starting with the initial perpetrator, and then a line of victimhood that is displaying the downside of being a perpetrator, forcing the soul into accepting the suffering. And when he has learned to accept and endure the suffering, he can go back into the perpetrator and regain compassion with his victim.
Yes.
Yeah?
And
it's always the same pattern.
The achievement of overcoming the problem.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you so much, Harald, for your time today. We've unpacked so much. It's been unbelievable, really. If you do want to do a part 2 of any of these patients, that would be absolutely phenomenal on Jerry's side and your side, if there's any more you want to do. So I think we've only just touched the surface. You two today needed to kind of unpack your theories and your facts and everything else. So
there's a lot of potential because he is still confronted with the non-willing ones.
Yeah, if you can master that, then that would be life-changing. It would seem like that's the target, really. And then the rest
I'm not sure. In my philosophy, for them it just needs time until they realize that the dark path is not that exciting.
Yeah.
It's getting boring after a while to be the bad one.
You've got to remove the illusion, haven't you? You've got to come from a very strong internal conviction of inner strength. You know that your soul is powerless, limitless, and that you're stronger than the human and stronger than any entity here. And then from that, I can't see you've really got any loose station open for these entities. So I suppose they just move on to a weak person at that point.
I wasn't like that all the time. I was full of entities and I was completely destroyed. And I was, when I look back at my relationships, I worked myself from being a sociopath to the borderliner, codependent, to the people pleaser, codependent, to a narcissist. So I worked myself through the conditions, coming from a very, very bad spot. If I look back into my childhood, actually, I'm an Asperger.
Okay,
bipolar.
My father's Asperger's.
Bipolar
I wanted to talk to you
Asperger.
about that before you go, actually. There seems to be a pattern here. You've mentioned it before, autism with narcissists. So I've got my mother's narcissistic. She's married an Asperger's autistic. So I think he's easier to control. Then my sister, has had an autistic child, and my dad's mother was schizophrenic. There's a pattern here, and you've just mentioned it.
It's complicated because you do have, when you run the scheme of identifying the primary cause, the root cause, then it has nothing to do with each other. Then you have kind of the trauma development-based conditions, which is narcissism, borderline, psychopathy, sociopathy. And you have the biochemically caused issues. Autism comes from mostly mercury, aluminum poisoning from the vaccines, and maybe from some agricultural things that play a role as well. It's hard to get the scientific proof exactly. Both is correlated, so it's hard to say. But there, if you want to remove the primary cause, you go into detoxing.
Yes.
And you bring the autistic children back like nothing.
Yeah.
It's easy. You just need to crack the destroyed gut biome. And if you crack the destroyed gut biome, you can revive the liver, and the liver is doing the detoxing, and then they come back to normal. Unless the soul has made friends out there and doesn't want to return, because it's a complete dissociation in autism. Right. The soul is somewhere else. And it's so disconnected in hardcore autism that it doesn't even get access to the ability to speak. You know, if you have a full autistic child, it's not speaking anymore. Or the body is caught in loops of self-reference because there's no input coming from the soul. Then you might need to apply some force to pull the soul back into the body, but only after the body is healed, because being in a non-healed body is torture.
So the detoxing, because it's lost its electromagnetic field connection, I suppose.
Same with bipolar. Bipolar is also the mercury dissolving the serotonin in a too quick manner. It's kind of a catalytic destruction of serotonin. And then your entire right side of the brain is disabled. Your emotional center doesn't function anymore. You're mentalizing, and you get into this sex addiction on one hand to recreate serotonin, and at the same time, because the emotional part is disabled, you mentalize completely, which is on the same spectrum like autism in a way. Yeah? They also have this being mentally fully there, being able to learn a book by heart within an hour, reproducing every single page, incredible abilities, but no emotional intelligence. And this is both kind of on the biochemical side, and this is where I would initially treat it. But then you get to the question, why did this soul incarnate in a baby that was preset to be autistic?
Because it needed to learn.
Because it needed to learn what you become if you neglect emotionality.
Yeah. It is a choice. From what I understand from the out-of-body people that come out of their bodies all the time, is that this is a game. We come in, we chose exactly what we were going to be doing. We have free will. It's like booking a holiday. You book the destination, you book the hotel, but what else happens is kind of free range. And that's kind of what we've done. We've come in here with a certain goal, and Earth is the only realm really where suffering takes place. So it's an enriched education experience for the soul that cannot be achieved in any other realm. So seeing it from that point of view, then you do see why suffering does exist here. It's one of the best educations the soul's ever going to get.
Yeah. And kind of this is for me the main downfall of humanity, is to split the spectrum of emotions like a rainbow into positive and negative emotions, and trying to neglect the negative ones and to accumulate the positive ones. which doesn't work, because either you love it to be an emotional being, and then sadness and anger should be as welcome as joy and happiness, or you neglect emotionality, and then you neglect the entire spectrum of it. And this is kind of for me, the ultimate key that
The
always
end.
is at the center and core of everything.
I've
to
had 10
welcome
years
that.
of abuse from my narcissistic mother, and after in the 10th year, 12th year that I'm on now, it's hard to work out whether friend or foe, because the education that woman has given me is phenomenal. So you do end up wondering, like you said, you can't categorize it positive or negative, because over the other side, that experience is very positive. But over here, that experience to me, in my little human mind, is negative. But she has given me the best education in my life. I couldn't be where I am today without what she did. So there we have how do you judge the positive and the negative? I think that's kind of what you're alluding to there.
I think we had a quick fix for the friend-foe recognition center. Maybe it could be funny to do that live when Jerry is back.
Okay.
And you can volunteer as a client, and we see if you can repair that recognition pattern within yourself.
It would be brilliant to do some shows like that. I don't think anyone else is offering anything like that. And it's education for people.
I had it once. With a lady that was kind of beautiful. It turned out to be ritually abused, making the show. And then I offered her kind of to go into trauma dissolving mode live for her audience. And she went to a certain point, and then she blocked because she felt like, I don't want to cry in front of everyone. But then it took like only 15 minutes, and it worked itself through in the subconsciousness. And at the end of the show, it like just melted through, and she completely liquefied in a positive way.
Wow.
And actually got rid of the control pattern in her behavior.
I think if they understand how it's going to help other people, I think we could get some motivation from some people to help. It'd be great. Well, thank you for joining me tonight, Harald. It's been absolutely amazing. And hopefully we'll do a part 2 with Jerry and some clients in future.
Yeah. I'll check for a client that went through the entire experience and is willing to share.
Yeah.
Got 2 in mind.
Perfect. Do you have anything you want to promote at the moment? You got anything going on?
No. We are already over promoted and have problems to keep up with the work with all the people that
wants your energy.
Seeking.
Oh, thank you so much. That's been an amazing evening. As I said, I'll leave links depending if Harald wants his links out there, but I'll definitely leave Jerry's in the bottom. But thanks so much for joining me tonight. So speak to you on the next one.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.